What do you think it means to complete an orbit? To revolve around something. And to notice a change in seasons throughout different stages of the process of revolving around that something. It's what planets do every day. It's what we do. And our science has allowed us to observe rhythms and predict patterns, pretty certain patterns. Not always, but pretty certain patterns. Like seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall, and it all has to do with the Earth's proximity to the sunlight and distance. And then it does it all again. The same process, the same rhythm, same seasons, and we've caught an orbit. And I think we can do that with our lives too, our human behaviors, our habits. I think social conditioning does a lot of damage in a lot of ways, but one area is it created an identity for us, which kind of slowly grabbed us and pulled us away from living life like the animal that we are, which is what a human is. A human is an animal. And we have instincts and we have biological drives, and we're equipped with ancestral evolution on a microbiological level. And I'm not saying the argument of did humans come from apes. I'm talking about the virus is an example. There was a new mutation of it. See, it evolved, but that new mutation evolved off of a already existing one. So we have that ancestral, mutational evolving, and that's why I believe our intellect is we're starting to find ways to steer our intellect for the benefit of ourselves, because that's the instinct. Self-interest is our instinct, right? And because of that, our behaviors are measurable in the same way that we can measure the orbit of a planet around a sun or a star or the moon around the earth. And I think the center of gravity is self-interest. And all of this is the space, that's the external. And what you find yourself floating in between your self-interest and kind of the external. And you never really get too far, and you just recognize how you're gonna live in that environment. So in the winters, you dress a little bit warmer. In the spring, you enjoy having your clothes off and swimming in water. So you take those metaphors and you put them in your own life. So when you're in school and money's not a problem, you do this kind of thing, and that's your spring. And when you have a job and you're stressed, you start realizing, well, you kind of act like this, and because you can't get too far from the gravitational self-interest. And I think I've lived enough life to have caught myself in at least 1 year's worth, so to speak, of an orbit. And it's really interesting because I think that will enable me to make great positive advancements in an extremely quick way compared to how long it took before. Because now I'm honest, I'm open, I'm willing to see how I act, and I can visualize based on experience now, and just based on current self-interest. Now that I'm in tune, I can feel it. Like, I'm seeing that I've done this before. Say I take a behavior and I've done it before, and then when I was putting in that same place a year later, I'm doing it again. So the same way I'm measuring the seasons, it got me thinking, well, what about my behaviors? How have my behaviors changed? And they haven't. That's a powerful thing to notice. So concluding the whole video, because I think that pretty much sums it up. What's your orbit? Find your orbit, your pattern of behavior. Accept yourself for who you are, you know? It's okay to have desires and guilt, because you got to realize you and the environment, like we talked about before, is a 1-to-1 ratio. You can't exist outside your environment. You might say, well, we go to space. Yeah, and we take a little bit of air with us. We take a little bit of our environment with us so that we can exist up there. You understand? That's a better way to look at it. We are one and the same. So what you're doing is you're swimming through the sea. The fish is you, the sea is life, and your circumstances. And every American and every human in the world has a different circumstance, a different set of choices. And we can't judge them on their individuality, but rather by the heart and the intention of the individual. That's what I believe, at least. But no matter. Fuck, I forgot where I was going with that. Your external, together, swimming through the sea. So your circumstances are yours. That's why I believe it's okay to not feel guilty about your drives. Now, if you're a piece of shit and you're going to use it to be lazy and weak, you know that. But this is for the strong-minded people. If you're strong-minded and you're listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. I don't gotta go into depth about that. So that's just kind of, we'll just get that out there for the rule. But orbit, find your orbit. I think it'll benefit you greatly.